Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kellyanne Biley. Welcome to our Be Our Proud special presentation of Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve. Over the next half hour, we'll bring you stories of veterans from across the U.S. who fought for the freedoms we enjoy every day. We begin with an in-depth look at America's involvement in World War II and how secret soldiers from the Navajo Nation helped turn the tides of the war. David Romero reports on the hundreds of Native American men in Arizona and New Mexico who volunteered to become Navajo code talkers.
The greatest thing was sacrificing our lives for our country. It wasn't just a duty, it was a responsibility, and we knew that we had to defeat the enemy or they would defeat all of us, take what we had.
Roy Hawthorne and more than 400 fellow code talkers volunteered from both sides of the state border inside the Navajo Nation of New Mexico and Arizona. Now, the idea to use the Navajo language as a communications code in the Pacific Theater came from a military man who once lived on the reservation. He knew the Navajo language was incredibly complex and only known by a small group of people. Young Navajo men were recruited, and this was to create the code using common names in their language to describe the military terms like battleships, tanks, and reconnaissance planes.
It's quiet, doesn't carry any armament. That's a hummingbird. In Navajo, it was Dakitien.
In battles across the Pacific, code talkers would relay thousands of messages with no errors, and their code would never be broken by the Japanese. Hawthorne and the others had used their language as a successful weapon, a native language that was ironically often prohibited in reservation boarding schools at home.
The language was discouraged. The use of it was discouraged.
The role of the code talkers in the war was kept secret for decades. Only much later were they acknowledged and their story fully told. Hawthorne says despite the hardships his native people had endured on American reservations, when the war came, frustrations were set aside.
We were loyal to our country. It wasn't because it was called America, but it was called a people that were willing to do for other people. That's the way we treated one another.
Roy Hawthorne passed away in 2018. Very few of the original 400 code talkers are alive today, and there's a big push in New Mexico to create a museum to honor these heroes. Last year, the New Mexico legislature and the governor pledged more than $1 million to start construction of the museum. For Veterans Voices, I'm David Romero.
The U.S. lost more than 400,000 soldiers during World War II. That's according to the museum in New Orleans. Today, one man is trying to remember each life lost, one biography at a time. Reporter Jeremy Hubbard shows us how he hopes to give a voice to every U.S. service member killed during World War II.
We see a field of heroes who served their country, but Don Milne,
when you look at his date of death, it says June 5th, 1943.
Right here he sees thousands of stories desperate to be told.
So Everett Burkholz here was actually born in Colorado.
And he wants to tell as many of them as possible.
So they put him on a Belgian liner. It was called the SS Leopoldville.
Milne lives in Utah, but visited Denver's Fort Logan National Cemetery as part of his new project, Stories Behind the Stars.
His location on the ship, he probably was killed by the torpedo.
He spent the last 3 years researching and writing about the fallen heroes of World War II.
Just because it was an accident doesn't mean that we shouldn't remember people like Everett.
His goal is to compile short histories of each of the 400,000 plus American service members killed in that war.
I got into this because I started just as a hobby because my kids are older and I have some free time. Every day I would write the story of someone who died during World War II, and I wrote more than 1,200 of those stories between the 75th anniversary of the end of Pearl Harbor and the 75th anniversary of the signing of the peace with Japan on the battleship Missouri.
In the end, he wants to create a searchable database, even a smartphone app, so users could visit a place like this, scan a name on a headstone.
Yep, that's his story, and we've got it all written here, so someone could read it while they're visiting his gravesite.
And be taken straight to a webpage that tells the soldier's story.
And I think it'll give them an idea of what freedoms we have in this country, because these people paid the price.
It isn't going to be easy. So far, he's only compiled about 1,200 profiles.
Looking for the grave of Harry Nelson.
So he's enlisting help researching these enlisted men and women.
His plane actually ditched in the ocean, so this is a cenotaph grave. He's not actually here.
He wants family members and friends to submit stories about their heroes who died, and volunteers to help write about these historic men and women.
They just visit grave sites, find the name of someone who died in World War II, and write their story. It only takes an hour or two to write a story. We give you free access to research sites like Ancestry, newspapers, Fold3, and if you can write an obituary, you can do one of these stories.
Already, people from all over the country and all over the world have offered to take part.
We don't have a lot of professional genealogists, historians that are helping us out. It's mostly just people that have some free time. They have a love for those who served our country. They want to see their stories remembered, and so they're writing these stories. It's amazing.
His objective may seem ambitious, overwhelming, and impossible.
His story is he was in the 66th Infantry Division.
But compared to the goal these heroes fought for in faraway lands more than 75 years ago, it's the least he can do.
There's no reason in the year 2020 why we can't have grave sites that are more than just names on stone.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Up next, a look at how one Virginia group is helping veterans on the road to recovery, one canine at a time. When Veterans Voices special presentation returns. We're back with a special presentation of Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve. Veterans who survive combat in war zones often struggle with the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, and for them, service dogs have proven to be beloved companions on the road to recovery. Constance Jones takes a look at a special Virginia group that's now helping change lives.
Dottie? Dottie, watch me. Okay, let's go. Girl. This is Dottie. She is 19 months old and she is a black lab. She's been paired with me.
After 7 years in the Army, Michelle went back to civilian life, but it wasn't easy.
For me, basically, it is climbing Mount Everest every time I leave my house.
Michelle was having trouble going out in public. Eventually, she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Simple task for a person without PTSD, I should say, is something that I cannot do. For example, going to the grocery store is a task I'm not able to do. I'm not able to go to Target. Walmart, forget it.
Like many veterans, she's gone through a list of treatments and therapies to no avail until she learned about Service Dogs of Virginia, located in Charlottesville.
My hope for having Dottie is that I am finally able to return to a normal life again, that I am able to have a sense of normalcy back in my life. Good girl, let's go.
But getting a dog like Dottie is easier said than done. It cost approximately $40,000 over a 2-year period to raise, train, and place a successful service dog with a person in need. Sally Day serves as the Director of Development at Service Dogs of Virginia.
I do everything I can to raise funds. We do not pass on that cost to our clients. I write grants. We have individual donors. I get corporate sponsorships.
Since 2000, the organization has placed over 95 dogs with clients throughout Virginia.
How do you guys go about placement? I imagine there's a long list of people who are needing assistance.
When service dog organizations began, they all started with a waiting list because there was so much need. Essentially, we're trying to meet the need that's out there, and that's why we have grown.
Today was day 2 of transfer camp for the dogs and the new owners. It's a little different than in years past with social distancing and mask wearing. Each dog here is being paired for different clients with different needs.
Go in.
Michelle excited about her new relationship. In 2 weeks, they'll be out on their own.
And this is just a tool for me to carry around with me. This is going to be like having my best friend with me wherever I go.
She hopes by sharing her story, other veterans will be inspired.
I think it's extremely important. Not all wounds are visible.
Knowing that it's okay to ask for a helping hand or paw to guide them through a difficult time.
I would encourage them to reach out, seek the help. Nobody's going to look at you differently.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Constance Jones.
Coming up, a photographer travels the U.S. taking photos of the men and women who've served our country. What motivates him to tell their stories when Veterans Voices returns. We're back with a special presentation of Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve. Every photo has a story. That's why one portrait photographer is now traveling the nation, taking hundreds of pictures of veterans. Reporter Jeremy Hubbard explains what motivates the man to tell their stories.
All I remember was like getting hit in the head with a baseball bat.
When you've taken a bullet to the helmet like Bill Purcell has,
You got nailed down.
your story has to be told.
February 1st, 1968, Way City.
Truth is, this entire room is full of Marines and sailors with unforgettable stories.
Here we go, right here. 1, 2, 3.
And a veterans charity is making sure they don't go untold any longer.
Just looking right at the camera.
John Reedy is a photographer for the Greatest Generations Foundation, a nonprofit aimed at preserving the history of American heroes.
Looking right to me. There we go.
The charity has been gathering groups of Vietnam and Korean War vets like this all over the country for portrait sessions.
This is probably the most meaningful work that I've done in my career. Looking right at the lens here. Nothing kind of compares with leaving something that you know has a legacy and has an impact that this kind of work does. Okay, gentlemen, can you get a little bit closer together? To see people when they follow me that they talk about how this actually can bring tears to their eyes to see the portraits, you know, and to know that the work conveys that kind of emotional impact is kind of awesome.
It is a rare moment to shine for veterans who have never sought the spotlight before.
I was in Korea from all of 1952.
Men like 88-year-old Ted Gembinski of Colorado Springs, Colorado, who fought on the cold battlefields of Korea, the so-called Forgotten War.
When I wear my cap or people can see that I was there, I just let them know it was my turn.
It's a big deal because I think that most of those guys, the Korean War vets, need to be recognized because they and the World War II vets were the ones that we built on.
Some of these men spent decades in the service. Some did more than one tour on the battlefield. For Dennis Sedlak of Longmont, Colorado, service is in his blood.
I enlisted because my dad was Navy and World War II, and you know, that seemed the thing to do. You couldn't look your dad in the eye if you didn't serve. It significantly altered my life to the point that I will say that I am back from the war. I am not home from the war yet, and I'm some 52 years later.
And just looking right at the camera. Perfect.
Their portraits will be made into a commemorative photo book alongside 70 other Korean War vets from all over the country and more than 50 Vietnam vets.
Try to see into their eyes and just try to see who they were. Hopefully we can do that.
The books will be given to schools and museums all over the country so future generations can learn about their place in our past and how to hopefully keep what happened to them from ever happening again.
It's very important. History repeats itself.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Next, we hear from West Point graduate and Army veteran who led troops during the Vietnam War. Reporter Lex Gray explains how veteran Tony Nadal returned to the U.S. and then fought to bring change within the armed forces.
During the Vietnam War, Tony Nadal's personal creed kept him moving toward the sound of guns,
It was boom, 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 boom.
toward enemy soldiers,
They're throwing hand grenades at me.
and toward his own fallen company men.
We won't leave anyone behind.
Born and raised by a West Point graduate, that's all Nadal ever wanted to do.
There's a history of guys graduating from the military academy and doing the right thing.
For him, doing the right thing meant using his qualifications in Vietnam.
I was very clear as to what my duty was as a company commander. I was going to lead from the front.
His ideals were put to the test during the Battle of Ia Drang in 1965. American troops were outnumbered by thousands. In Nadal's company, 17 of his 95 soldiers were killed. He remembers trying to retrieve a lieutenant's body from a creek bed in the middle of a firefight.
I find there's another soldier there who's still alive, and he also got left behind. And he survives. I get taken back to our front lines.
Later, Nadal got orders to rescue a platoon that was surrounded by enemy forces. As Nadal and his men moved forward, 3 standing on either side of him were killed by machine gun fire.
Why the Lord spared me on that given day, I don't know.
Later in the war, Nadal was moving through a rice paddy next to a soldier who was shot and killed. That soldier had passed on another assignment because he wanted to serve under Nadal.
And because of that, he died. And that hurts. Every time I talk about it, that hurts.
It hurts because Nadal believes above all in his duty to his own soldiers.
You've got to be worthy of your soldiers. I felt personally responsible for them.
When Nadal returned to the United States, he took what he learned in combat and sought to modernize the Army.
In training in special forces.
He got a master's in social psychology and eventually taught at West Point. At that time, he says freshmen were still being abused as they went through the initial plebe system.
And I thought it was abysmal. It was the worst example of leadership. You couldn't treat a soldier like that and gain any respect from him.
During his time with the psychology department, Nadal chaired a study of the plebe system.
We wrote a study that just devastated that system. The West Point they see today and the way they treat the incoming freshmen, whatever, is derived from that study that I chaired.
In Nadal's Army career, you see a sense of responsibility, of taking care of others. He told me he'd like to see more of that in his own country.
What we don't have in this country now is a sense of I am partially responsible for him. We are responsible for each other.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Lex Gray.
Coming up, we speak with one World War II veteran who just celebrated 100 years young. His secret to surviving the war and its impact on his life thereafter. That's next when Veterans Voices returns. We're back with a special presentation of Veterans Voices honoring those who serve. We've heard it before, it's not about you, it's about us. Those words have become the guiding light for one World War II veteran when reflecting on how he survived conflict and ultimately life nearly 80 years later. You're about to meet retired Army Major Anthony Grant, who recently celebrated his 100th birthday. Reporter Don Roberts uncovers some of the veterans' secrets to success and a happy life.
I am doing good. It's a wonderful afternoon.
That positive attitude and a sharp memory have been hallmarks of Mr. Anthony Grant of Hampton. He was 21, living in New York's Harlem borough.
I was working as a printer's apprentice. Eventually, of course, I became a journalist.
Grant was born in New York, but spent most of his early years in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. Shortly after returning, he was drafted.
I realized that once I got into the Army, my life would be changed forever.
Grant trained at the Army's Fort Dix, New Jersey, and Fort Lee in Petersburg, Virginia. And that's where he got his first real dose of racism in the armed forces.
So there was a town called Grenada, Mississippi, and I was in the camp near the base for 6 months, and I went in town only twice.
Attitudes in Mississippi were about the same. Grant, like many blacks in World War II, were assigned to the Quartermaster Corps, loading, storing, and delivering supplies to troops on the front lines. And in June of 1944, those front lines were Normandy, France, days after the massive Allied attack known as D-Day.
Within the beach itself, it was a complete chaos. Burned equipment,
And as the combat troops pushed forward toward Germany, that's when Grant's troops came under fire.
I've been shot at, and I in turn have shot my weapon.
After the war, Grant moved up the ranks in the Quartermaster Corps while serving all over Europe, Korea, and Japan. He retired after 20 years with the rank of Major in 1963.
You've reached the right age of 100. Do you have a secret for longevity?
Have a positive mind. Have a positive mind. Things will get better tomorrow.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Don Roberts.
I certainly hope you've enjoyed our Be Our Proud special presentation of Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve. If you'd like to see more stories about the brave men and women who've served our country, make sure to check out our website, beourproud.com. I think I can speak on behalf of our team when I say thank you to all of you who have served and continue to serve. Your service will never be forgotten. I'm Kellyanne Biley. Have a good day.